You're watching Daniel Douglas TV, and Daniel Douglas, that's me. Last week I showed how I finished the second layer of paint. I think the painting is done for about 80% now. But in this movie I want to do something very special in the third and the fourth layer. I want to use a very special color to glaze it and explain how it works when you glaze with oil paint. But first I need to go back to the model. At this point it's always very important to see the model and the environment in real life again. I'm on my way to Nena. She is the model for my next project, My Modern Milk Maid. And I need to see her for the second time for some final details. Wil je even zitten? Of even pauze?
Ja, graag.
So in this third layer you use a lot of oil to make the oil paint very thin. This way it will get transparent, and that's very nice if you want to make some colors deeper. But also it's very important to do it this way, because this way you can add different details very smoothly and make corrections very smoothly. If you don't use this oil, it won't be smooth, it will be very tough to add the final details. Kunstguru. Last week I told you I want to explain something about the symbolism of Vermeer in this video. But actually, when I talk about Vermeer, I much rather say the specific details that he used. You see, because if you're talking about symbols, it's almost as if there's a certain amount of objects that stand for a certain amount of codes that are repeatedly used. Like a flower lost its leaves, or a skull that's standing for vanitas, or a peeled lemon that's standing for erotics, or a painting of a sea in the background that's standing for the relationship of the people that are in that particular painting. These objects are said to be very common things used to symbolize certain messages in painting. But Vermeer had his own original details to tell a unique story. But first, before I dive into these specific details of Vermeer, I want to compare Vermeer with Jan Steen. And this time I want to compare the two to show something about the style and the expression that Vermeer wants to tell us in his paintings. If you look at the paintings of Jan Steen, there's a lot going on, like a lot of painters from his time did as well. Like a young boy smoking his pipe, or another kid trying to steal something from their parents, a guy with a duck on his shoulder, a monkey playing with a clock, a dog begging for food, a guy half drunk trying to play the violin. There's so much going on, and there's so much to see. You can endlessly look at the painting, and there's a lot of fun in it too. But now I want to show something about Vermeer. If you see these paintings, it's so quiet. Not only that, it's just a situation that you and I can identify with. Because this is what you do when you're standing in the kitchen, or you're standing in the living room, or when you're doing just your own things. Reading a letter, reading a book, looking at your laptop, looking at your phone. But now, let's go into the details. Details. The music lessons. Do you see the mirror above the girl that's playing the piano? You know, If you really calculate how this mirror is hanging above the piano, she would actually not be reflected in this mirror. Prospectively, you would not see her, but you do see her. So if you look very closely in the way you see the girl in the mirror, you see she's sort of lifting up her head to try to get a glimpse of the guy that's standing next to her. This you would not have seen if there was not a reflection of her face in the mirror. But he wants to show the expression of her face in the mirror. She's searching for eye contact. Maybe she's flirting, or maybe she's a bit scared of him. And then the glass of wine. If you look very closely, you can see the highlight on the glass covering her eye. So this way you don't really see her expression, or you don't see where she's looking at. Vermeer must have done this with the reason as well. Or what about the girl reading a letter in front of the window? You see the curtain in front of her. You know, if you see a curtain in between the model and the viewer, it gives a lot of tension. It's like a lot of mystery going on, but also it reminds us of a theater where you have the curtains opening up and then the theater starts. And this is something that's very difficult to see on the picture, but if you look very carefully you can see it. And if you can't see it, you should definitely go out, check out this painting in the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. Because if you look up close, then you can really see what I mean. But in the middle of her arm, you can see a line where she's stained, where she's a bit more brown, and the rest of her arm is white. This is very unique. Like I already told last week, suddenly the painter's starting to paint ordinary people, and this is a very good example of it. Because the people that had been painting before this time were only kings, queens and very important people. These people were so important that they didn't have to work outside. But this Milk Maid and her tainted arms is a proof that she'd just been working outside. She's tainted by the sun, and then she's rolling up her sleeves. But you know, if I talk about Vermeer, I can go on and on and on talking. But I'm not gonna do that. But there's one last thing that I want to show you. This is a huge inspiration for me, and I can really recognize the things that I want to do and the mysteries that I want to leave in the painting. If you check all the paintings of Vermeer, you'll recognize one thing. All the paintings of Vermeer have one thing in common, and this is very remarkable about his paintings, and this is also a huge inspiration for me when I paint people with their phones, and that's the windows. You know, most painters paint windows with a nice view outside, but Vermeer never does this, and this brings a lot of mystery, because there's a window next to these people standing in these rooms, but you don't know what's behind the window. It can be anything. The only thing you see is the light that comes from the window, like the side of the window that gives you an impression that there is a window. Well, this is a huge inspiration for me, because this is also what I do with my phones. I always show people holding their phones and their laptops, but you can never see where they're looking at. It can be the whole world of information. All information from the whole World Wide Web is on our phones today. So it can be literally everything that they're looking at. But if you don't see it, that's what makes it so mysterious. Like my modern Milk Maid as well. Where is she looking at? You'll never know. But I figured out what's behind the window of Vermeer. Do you want to know? Are you really sure you want to know? If you don't want to know, you have to skip now. But if you do want to know, are you sure you want to know? Are you really sure you want to know? Okay, here it comes. cool thing about Vermeer was he used very special colors. Unlike a lot of other people from his time, he was using, for instance, Lapis Lazuli. That's a kind of a blue. It's this stone, and it needed to come all the way from Afghanistan. And this was at that time the only kind of blue that you could use. So what they did was they crushed this stone into this fine powder. So this stone needed to be imported from Afghanistan to be crushed till this fine powder, and then to be mixed with oil, linseed oil mostly, to make it into paint. But you can understand that this whole process is very time consuming. This is very time consuming, and therefore it's costing a lot of money. So this blue was only used for very special people, for very special paintings. It was even sort of reserved for Mother Mary. It was sort of a holy color. And also this stone has sort of a special energy to it. So the cool thing was, it had always been something that was reserved for Mother Mary. And suddenly, Johannes Vermeer started using it for just ordinary people. So therefore I thought, my modern Milk Maid. In that painting, I want to use Lapis Lazuli for her jeans and maybe for some other blue details in the painting. As you can see, I do a very thin transparent layer of Lapis Lazuli over it. The brush I use right now is very soft hairs, and this works very well to sort of push the paint that you add on with the other brush into the canvas, and that you don't see all these brush strokes too much. Most painters back in the days, if they would glaze, they would use a lot of thin layers of color on top of each other, where they would first paint an underpainting from black and white or brown and white. I used first an underpainting of black and white, then I did a layer of synthetic ultramarine blue, and then I did 3 layers of thin Lapis Lazuli over it eventually. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna cover the whole painting, or at least everything that's cool, everything that's around the light of the phone, with Lapis Lazuli, with a transparent layer. And as this color has a special energy to it, you can almost say the whole painting is sort of anointed by this blue stone. So almost the whole painting around her, like the whole atmosphere is Lapis Lazuli, this stone with linseed oil. Covering the whole painting with Lapis Lazuli was at first not the thing that I had planned. At first I only thought of painting the jeans and some blue details, but later on I realized that it could become very beautiful if I cover the whole painting, or at least everything that's not in light of the phone, with a thin layer of Lapis Lazuli. I'm done. Or maybe I should say almost done. What I need to do now, like always, is paint the edges. I'm gonna frame it and then kunst. Done with the edges. This all looks very dramatic, but I know it's a frame, so the middle part is hollow. Yeah. Or if there's something extra in the package, then I'm screwed. I hope it fits. It does fit. Yes. I hope you enjoyed watching this movie. If you do like these movies, please subscribe to my channel and you'll get an upload every Friday. Peace.